Labdien! Kārtējās sarunās NRALV, kur atkal nav vadītājs vai viesis, bet ir divi viesi, kuri savā starpā pārunā aktualitātes un mēģina būt interesanti arī skatītājiem. Šoreiz mums viesis ir Oļegs Osinovskis, igauņu rūpnieks un arī pietiekoši liels investors Latvijas ekonomikā.
Good afternoon, Oļeg. Good day, Farid.
First of all, I wanted to ask, well, since I wouldn't want to assume that everyone knows everything. It's best when it's necessary to explain. If it seems like everyone knows everything, it turns out no one knows anything. I wanted you to talk about the business you are involved in Latvia and what your investments in Latvia are so that people understand, so that the viewers understand well the scope of the work you are doing in Latvia.
It's a bit strange. I thought that in Latvia I wasn't quite such a terra incognita. Someone knows me. Well, probably one of the well-known enterprises that the Latvian people or the program viewers know is the Daugavpils locomotive repair plant, which we acquired. This is the largest locomotive repair plant in Europe, actually, with a history of 160 years already. And all these years it has been operating without a single day of interruption. We acquired it in the early 2000s, so it has been almost 20 years that we have been shareholders of this plant. Dzintars is where we are located now, generally where the NRA is. I think this is also a well-known brand, and it's almost 160 years or something, even more. And also over the last 3 years, we have built 2 new factories. These are factories for the production of bitumen emulsion. This is currently the largest bitumen emulsion production factory in the Baltic countries. Previously, Latvia imported bitumen emulsion from Estonia and Lithuania. Today, for example, it exports it. And the second factory for the production of polymer bitumen is also located here on Mala 30. This is in general also unique technologies. Today we export this bitumen. So, well, among such large enterprises, probably 4, and quite a lot of companies that we have about 10 companies in Latvia, actually. But those, as I mentioned, the well-known ones are probably these 4.
Mira often writes, well, everything is bad. Investing here is not interesting at all. The business environment is just a disaster. And here suddenly you come with such a volume of production investments. These are not just some companies. These are production investments. I think viewers should understand that this is an entirely different responsibility. A large number of people, large assets. It's always... It's not just about opening a chain you need, and to build such enterprises, you need equipment. These are quite significant capitals that are tied to Latvia. What is the basis of you being an Estonian businessman? Why didn't you build the bitumen plant in Estonia, but, for example, built it in Latvia? What attracts you here as an investor?
Well, I should probably start by saying that I am an engineer by education. I have spent my whole life working with the railway. I am a doctor of technical sciences, and the railway industry is, well, my beloved child, so to speak. And if we're talking about the Baltics, then actually all engineers, technicians, and generally all the railroad know-how has always been in Latvia. Neither Estonia nor Lithuania had it, and they still don't. Latvia was the largest, I would even say by world standards, a global center, so to speak, railway locomotive building or simply railway rolling stock. Well, for example, if we take the great RVR, which produced 600 rail cars a year, employed 6,000 people, it was one of the largest factories in the world, and in terms of technology, it was also one of the leading ones globally. And in this sense, therefore scientific, or rather not even scientific, but let's say people who know and understand how to build rolling stock, how to repair and work with it, were all in Latvia, of course. Therefore, the know-how was all in Latvia. So it was logical that I brought my idea to Latvia and acquired a factory there where all these competencies were present.
Let's compare. But your Daugavpils factory has been operating for 20 years and everything is fine, sort of.
160 years in operation.
160 years. as it were, in your enterprise. 20 years, 160, there were other owners. So in between, there was Soviet power. And
There's no more RV.
You know, I would say this, you know, everything about it. I would put 3 dots. Yes, you must know how to do it too. A very good example is the example of Skoda, for instance. RVR surpassed Skoda in all technologies by the end, let's say, of Soviet times. Skoda compared to RVR was like a small workshop where, I don't know, there are 2 people turned bolts. But nevertheless, today Skoda is a global manufacturer. Today Latvian citizens ride Skoda cars, on Skoda trains, on Skoda trams, on electric, you know, Skoda electric trains, you know. But the great RVR, it's gone. That's the question. And, well, a sense of political or governmental understanding, so to speak, economy. What did Skoda do? Or rather, what did the Czech government do? All orders. For the Czech railway, for the cities and so on, the orders were directly given to Skoda. And Skoda had all these orders. With these orders, it restructured, learned, developed, and today it is a global manufacturer and a huge exporter. And in Latvia, as you know, instead of ordering trams from their own RVR, they ordered trams from Skoda. And that is where we are today. The same with trains.
no, well, what's interesting, I would like to remind you that Skoda trams are not from the 90s. I remember them from my childhood. We always had Skoda trams in Riga, for example. It's interesting in itself. Why during Soviet times were Skoda trams in Riga and not RVR Vestis? RVR also produced trams, imported them.
And in Daugavpils, there were RVR ones. This was within the framework of, so to say, socialist cooperation. Quite strange schemes, but yes, they existed. Well, okay, that was then. But when Latvia became independent, or so to say, restored its independence, well, there shouldn't have been an alternative. Of course, the local manufacturer should have received all the orders.
Well, okay, that's about trains, but Zintas is so far from locomotive or construction of rolling stock, Zintars.
Several factors coincided here. Zintars remained with me since childhood as such, well, incredibly a good brand. Let's call it that. When it found itself in difficulties, went bankrupt, I thought that this was my mission. I had to save it. It can't be that. So to speak, my childhood memory disappears. And that was one of the factors. And the second factor, of course, at Zintars. I have a very good partner with the team in Zintars, Anastasia Udalova, who took on, and she, in essence, she did not just revive Zintars, she brought it to a completely new level and new heights.
So how are things going at Zintars?
How are you, Mom? Last year, we produced more than 3 million pieces. Well, all sorts of stuff. Items. The New York Times recognized one of Zintar's toothpastes last year as the discovery of the year and trend of the year. And this was without any lobbying, we didn't even participate in this competition. Today, well, Zintar's toothpaste, I think it's a bestseller and the whole world is already using it, so to speak. Very good sales and so on, but we aim to surpass L'Oreal.
Good goals. Well, all right. But then, in general, I see. The railroad, it's because it's love. Your love. Zintars is kind of a childhood memory. Bitumen and polymer bitumen.
We've worked quite a lot in this area with, that is our company, and they sold it, used it, and so on. At a certain point, it was clear that this was an empty niche in Latvia.
Okay, so there are 4 plants. There are fresh investments, some older ones. That is have you ever wanted to leave Daugavpils, sell it to hell and all? No need, because what am I getting at? I am leading to the stories of many local, these are not even businessmen. They are pseudo-businessmen who are quite unsuccessful. And then they say, well, everything is bad here. The government doesn't help. That's it. Well, everything is burning with a blue flame. I'm leaving here. I'll go somewhere better. Well, to Estonia or Lithuania or Poland or I don't know where. And for 20 years, it's one factory, then another factory, and then 2 more factories here. After all, what is it that attracts you here? And why, for example, doesn't this happen elsewhere? Why do you or does investment grow the same way for you in Estonia?
Well, first of all, I'll answer the question of why we didn't want to sell. Well, you can't sell love. No, right? What would it even be if we were trading? What?
Is this business or what?
Well, we are businessmen. No, that's not true. This approach that I'm talking about big business. That big business is only pragmatic money. Not true? Not true. Today, in our circle, well, let's say of big business, they're enthusiasts and, so to speak, people who still do business for some idea, mission, well, I would say the majority. That's not true. That's the first thing. Regarding Latvia, that's not true either. Latvia is a wonderful country. In Latvia, there are hardworking, honest, capable people. And doing business in Latvia is actually easy. It's not true that everything is bad in Latvia. That's such a common stereotype, but it's not the case. What about Latvians? All crooks and everything else, and it's impossible to work there. Not true. It's not like that at all. So I would say that it's easy for me to do business in Latvia, and all these years we have never encountered any major problems. Well, from the perspective of, let's say, I don't know, dealing with government bodies and so on. That would truly be a big problem. Well, there are always small ones, but that is normal. Therefore, it's not like that. In Latvia, everything is fine. Yes, in Latvia, there are things to improve, like everywhere. But Latvia is one of those countries where doing business is convenient, easy, and simple.
But there is a lack of people everywhere. There are not enough people everywhere. We also have demographics. Well, in the entire Baltic, demographics are kind of down, and you open manufacturing facilities where people are needed, but people are needed everywhere. It's more than, for example, opening an online lending office, that in there fewer people are required than, for instance, producing railway, trains, or producing cosmetics, or producing bitumen. Well, anything that what you are talking about. And how do you think this will affect your business in the future, or will it not be automated, or what?
Of course, some things can be automated, especially at Zintars, for example. Yes, that is new lanes, packaging lines, new lines, let's say bottling and so on. They can be optimized. Where 4 people worked, 2 will work. Yes, this is possible. It's true. In some things, it's impossible to automate. For example, it's impossible to automate locomotive repair. Yes, since that involves manual work. Almost the same manufacturing. That is, well, as you know, we made new trams there for Daugavpils. Now we also plan to participate in a tender for the modernization of the production of new trams in Tallinn. We think that Daugavpils will announce competitions for new trams. Riga will for new trams. Now Tallinn will announce for new trams. We will participate in all these competitions. Well, if we are lucky, we will win and produce both new ones and modernize the old ones. Because that is also one of those things, well, people, I think, should know. If we say that we need to maintain peace, reasonably spending resources and minimizing environmental impact, we should generally modernize things that can still operate, because throwing away a tram whose chassis, for instance, can still run for another 30 years is wasteful. It just needs modernization, and it will be as good as new. People won't even notice it's been modernized.
Therefore,
the issue with people, yes, there are always problems with people, always problems. But I would say even more, the problems are not with the workforce itself, so to speak. The level of workforce in Latvia is very high. That is, people are capable, people are educated. So this problem doesn't exist at all. There is a problem probably more with engineers. There is probably some issue with business people, well, let's say, with the upper level of talented individuals. They mostly leave, or let's say they don't come to us. Yes, there is a problem, of course, but right now we have plans to build a large packaging production plant. It is about 30 million investments. It is currently on hold. Right now, so to speak, the banks are waiting for certain events, after which probably we will start building this plant. In Latvia today, many manufacturers use packaging from Madara, Zintars, Grindex, All-in Farm, and so on, and many, many others. All the packaging today is imported. That is, it's either Polish or Ukrainian or Chinese, mainly Chinese, let's say. And today we see that even Latvia's demand, all right, Latvia won't be the main one, of course, consume 100% of this packaging, but we see even here great demand. And we want to build a significant large factory. Super modern, 30 million euros of investment and produce packaging right here on site in Latvia. Possibly right here at Emal.
That's a big industry. That's good. What percentage do you think will go to export?
Well, that's it's hard to say because we haven't fully developed the concept of the stages yet, whether to build large immediately or gradually. Therefore, well, if in the final version, well, I don't know, 90% will be for export.
That's a lot.
Daugavpils has 95% export, 95. Well, sort of.
Zintas, I think, has about 70%. So we are export-oriented companies, and we are the ones who bring money into the country, not take it out like, I don't know, car traders who buy in Germany and sell here, like a Mercedes dealership, right? But we bring money into the country.
Well, it is limited, but there is the idea that exporters are the main source of where money comes from. Because money doesn't just appear in the budget, it won't appear in taxes, it only comes from export production when it arrives. The rest all diminishes.
You know, Filips, you are a smart person, you know this, but most people say, what's the difference? They're exporters, importers. What difference does it make?
These are the same people who say they earn a salary in a government position and say, I pay taxes after all.
Yes, yes.
I pay taxes. Where do you get the money to pay taxes? That's already from taxes.
It's splendid. When an official calls themselves a taxpayer, it's splendid. It's just...
To some extent, he pays taxes from his income, but generally it's still the same tax money, the same money from exporters. But regarding packaging, you touched on the topic of China very well.
Right now, we see this entire tariff war.
America with China, and here begins the concern of Europeans about where China will dispose of its overproduced goods if it does not export to America. Well, of course, it will look for another market, but the European market is even larger than the American market, that they will flood the European market just offloading goods. They need to turn goods into money. They may even be prepared for losses and so on. How could this affect things? You speak quite confidently about investing in this packaging business. And on the other hand, there's this looming shadow of Chinese competition, Chinese cheap goods.
I actually agree with everything. The problem with China, really, and what Trump is actually fighting against, honestly, is that it is a state economy. And there, the issue of pricing is not market-driven. It is an issue like, so to speak, that at the Central Committee, like there, the Central Committee of the Communist Party or whatever it's called there, yes, said to do it. If today they want to sell steel, they pay an additional $100 per ton of steel from the budget, just sell and so on. Therefore, the question, since the pricing issue is not market-based, we, of course, are constantly dependent on these decisions. That is, and what the Communist Party will do, what it will want to do. This risk actually exists. Well, that's why there are various antitrust organizations in the European Union that monitor if the price level does not match the market, it's such a, well, subsidized situation, then they impose tariffs.
You have a business in several European countries, Estonia, Latvia, and where else?
We have Scans Group operating continuously in 17 countries, and episodically in more than 20 countries. So we have over 50 companies in Scans Group.
Yeah, there have been cases when the opportunities provided to European enterprises by European bureaucracy have been used in the fight against unfair competition, for example, from China or certain anti-dumping.
Events?
No, we do not use it, but I still have some kind of such a, so to speak, right libertarian understanding. First of all, the state owes us nothing. This talk, the state should help. The state, it shouldn't. This is my deepest conviction. And the second thing, I always tell all my managers, if there is an opportunity not to work with the state, don't work with it.
We should not create.
Well, let me put it this way. You know, I've never invested in cryptocurrency. On principle, never. And it's very clear and principled why. I do not want to disrupt the global financial system. I just don't want to. Yes, it's profitable. Yes, back at the very beginning when, I don't know, Bitcoin cost $4, you could buy it. And all my acquaintances bought it and so on. Well, not all. We do not buy. I fundamentally do not buy. I believe it destroys the very universe that I well have imagined and built for myself and in which I want to live. It's the same story with the state. I believe there shouldn't be so much state. There shouldn't be state-owned companies. There shouldn't be state intervention. In general, the state shouldn't be so thin and shouldn't meddle in anything. And we shouldn't meddle anywhere. It should protect, like the army, guard, like the police, heal, like doctors, teach like teachers. That's where the level ends. Everything else should not be from the state.
As for cryptocurrency, I would be surprised if you said that I like cryptocurrency, because it is very rare. Well, based on their psychological profile, we see that those who invest in cryptocurrency are the ones who invest in bitumen production plants. But it's
Like a person of tangible things.
crypto is a very intangible thing. Well, it's ephemeral. This immediately brings to mind the story you probably know about bulbs. Well, the first crisis in Holland 300 years ago, tulips, they invested in bulbs. The only difference between a bulb and crypto is that at least you could plant the bulb.
And beautiful.
Yes.
It's impossible to even plant crypto, but still people they always need something like this, and that's why they get involved with it, because it's a matter. It's like, I even think that crypto it's somewhere it might be connected, sort of comparable to religion, because these people who invest in crypto, they have these religious feelings towards crypto. Speaking about Europe, I had the opportunity regarding those old trams here. I completely agree. I was just at a conference in Milan.
There are ultra-modern trams.
And there are also ones like the rare tram from 1901 that we have, but we have only one, and it runs for entertainment in Riga, while there they actually run in Milan, and no one complains that these are old trams, and they are part of the system. And maybe that's correct, because they have long paid for themselves in terms of the environment 100 times over.
You know, Philip, the question of the tram's appearance is actually the simplest thing. We can make an old tram with an ultra-modern design. Conversely, we can make a modern tram in a retro design. It's the simplest thing. The exterior, the simplest thing. We're basically saying, well, actually, the tram is a very simple thing that also needs to be acknowledged, like the tram and the electric train. It's a bit more complex than an iron, but essentially very simple. That is the level of qualification competence in Latvia today allows for these trams to be made easily. It's not an issue. Yes, they will not be cheaper than others. This too is an illusion, thinking that if we sell them ourselves, they will be cheaper. They won't be, because everything is made from essentially the same components. You buy the carts in one place, the engines in another place, wires in a third place, and everyone does it this way. Therefore, it will cost about the same, but it will be your tram. All the taxes will stay here. There will be jobs, workforce, and around one engineering site, 3 additional places will be created that supply, clothe, dress them, build roads, and so on. Therefore, having your own engineering production is extremely beneficial for any country.
Well, there are contradictions here. So it will be cheaper for you because in the end, the main clients are the municipalities. Well, who buys trains? State enterprises, and most often railways belong to the state. The trams are purchased by municipal enterprises that operate the state, municipal infrastructure. So if you For example, when you build a tram in Daugavpils, for Daugavpils you pay all these taxes. In the end, it's still much cheaper because part of the money you spent returns to the budget through various payments and in different ways. If you pay abroad to Škoda, they deliver the tram to you, and that's it.
Well, this is being discussed. This is how the Prime Minister should think. This is how the Prime Minister should think. How he thinks, we don't know, but he should think this way. But if you're producing trams, for example, in Dalgas for Riga, Riga doesn't benefit because all the taxes remain either in Riga or in the state.
It's not federal, it's more like a common state.
Well, the state, yes, I mean, the mayor of Riga specifically, he does not care. That's how the system is built. It might not be bad, actually. It's just built in such a way that, yes, trams produced in Daugavpils are beneficial for the city of Daugavpils because of taxes. Everything else, it's all very good. But trams produced in Daugavpils for Riga, as I said, the mayor of Riga does not care, but for the country, it does matter. Therefore, this should be a government issue. The Prime Minister should ensure that not a single euro goes to the Czech Republic.
Well, what about that? Isn't there competition in the European Union? Everyone should have, well, the same conditions and so on and so on. What about that? By the way, the Czechs now, does everyone only buy Škoda or do they also have non-Škoda products on their railway?
I would say this. The conduct tenders is required, but for some reason, Škoda wins every time.
How unexpected.
Yes, that's unexpected. For some reason, a Czech company always wins in the Czech Republic. And when you take the Swiss, for example, Switzerland, yes, where Stadler.
Not everyone wins, by the way. Here I would argue with you. They lost at home. There was such a thing because
There was a scandal, like how come Stadler and in Switzerland not Stadler?
Exactly, Philip, you know well about Stadler. That is precisely why there was a scandal. But Stadler was used to winning all the time. So at some point, they were put in their place, of course. That is, one must still be market-oriented in this sense. And could you say where else you have won besides Daugavpils? Well, in Europe? Do you mean with trams?
Yes.
For the first time ever. Daugavpils has never built trams, never. The last tram was built by Riga, sometime in the 1980s.
Such square ones.
And we have never built anything. So this was the very first experience with these trams. And you know what? It's also a matter of how the tender is structured. That was also a whole story. How we got this tender? Because all tender conditions always include production experience for this thing. And you've never done it, so you have no chance to get in.
They don't even let you participate in the tenders.
Of course, they just don't allow it. And we were really dealing with the Ministry of Finance, and we spoke with the state. Well, if we do not have experience, we can never participate. This point, it gives nothing to the state. Let everyone participate. With experience, without experience. Well, they will then choose the best based on price. Well, why limit competition? But if you look in all government tenders, everywhere it says experience, 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 and experience. And in this way, competition is limited. The same ones always play, as always. The rich get richer, and the poor never become them.
Well, it's a European principle that there must be experience. Without experience?
No.
Well, for example?
No, you can write any conditions. Experience is not a criterion for these European, so to speak, tenders. No, it's not like that.
Well, then...
Why do they set it? I'll tell you how. I'll tell you why they set it. Because, for example, you're the head of, let's say, some passenger department. It's called something else now, but let's assume it is. You announce a tender for trains, and you don't set experience as a requirement. Then someone like Sidorov will come and win. What if he doesn't supply these trains? Or they are bad, or they break down, or something else? He is responsible. And so, he takes...
Regarding the trains breaking down, well, this was mentioned.
Agreed.
Quite touched upon. We remember what happened with Stadlers. We remember what happened with Škodas in Latvia. So someone, an unknown person without experience, well, it can be different. But still, then I understand that you received some sort of...
Well, someone heard you in Latvian.
Yes, yes, exactly so.
In the structures, it is necessary, it is necessary to do it so that maybe experience is not required. Because, well, obviously, if you have a factory that produces 100, how many did you say 100? 160 years. 160 years. Well, I suppose it can produce a tram or a train, and well, maybe there will be limited capabilities with an airplane. But of course, it's not just like if I came and said I'll build you a train. It'll be cheaper. Nathan.
We did not say it would be cheaper. We said that we would build it. It would be the same. Well, better is also a very conditional thing. How do you measure better is car, right? But it will be a good tram, and we will build it. It will be our local tram, which we will always maintain. We will always repair, and the money will stay here. Oșia, this is also a question of future money. Now we bought Škoda, which means that for the next 50 years, all the money for repairs and maintenance will go to the Czech Republic. So the Latvian taxpayer will continue to send all this money. The same goes for Škoda trams and everything else. This should not be forgotten. The purchase price itself is not always the final expense. Not always.
All right. So there's one more issue I wanted to discuss with you. So there I was talking with colleagues at the conference. Colleagues from Hungary told me about an interesting situation that we do not see in Latvia from a business perspective, that on one hand, their government is very pragmatic. They are always such pragmatics. We see that even in their pragmatism have reached such a deep love with Russia in this situation, which is the European Union is more unacceptable than acceptable. But as a result, businesses are leaving Hungary. That is, the investment environment is deteriorating. Despite the government talking a lot about pragmatism in business relations and attracting investments are flowing out. This is what my colleagues say, that business is becoming weaker. They kind of complement it with some state investments, flirt, but then already with China. Well, their situation is that this regime, it comes into some contradiction with still what he says. That is, the business environment is deteriorating despite all the statements about pragmatism in the business sphere. You also have a business in Hungary, right?
Yes, this is one of the countries where we are actively working in Hungary. We have several dozen of our locomotives operating in Hungary. And moreover, these are locomotives, in my opinion, they even belong to the Daugavpils factory. I think it's even a Latvian business. I might be wrong, but I think it's like that. So we also service, repair, and lease out locomotives through DPO Hungary. And we have, we have quite a good, let's say, history in Hungary.
Well, what is the sentiment in business? How do you perceive this policy being implemented in Hungary? How does it affect, in general, the business environment in Hungary?
Well, right now, undoubtedly, the situation is worsening.
Or, well, yes, that's right. It's deteriorating. It is always a question of the investor's perception. This is what I would also like to say. Perhaps this can be said about Russia. I mean, why don't foreigners invest in Latvia or Estonia today? It's completely clear why. So answer me why, right? That is to place their investments, I don't know, there on the border with Russia and subject them to risk. Because now the country risk in this sense, it is, well, completely different than it was before the war. Why? There are a huge number of countries in the world where you can make the same investments. What makes us better than everyone else? So now investments in the Baltics are investments by local entrepreneurs. The main ones. Again, why? Because we live here. We have nowhere to go, nowhere to run, and everything else. We will still defend our country. We will be here. And that's why we spend money and we develop these countries. And at least we will live here. And we have nowhere else to go. Therefore, it's kind of a question. Well, country risk too. Now let's talk about Hungary. It's the same story. If you loyal, integrated, moving, let's say, with everyone, developing all the values of the European Union and including our values, of course, an investor comes there. But if today the government behaves, I don't know, there's no press freedom, for example, right? The courts, for example, are dependent. The politics are contrary to or at odds with the values of the Soviet Union. Why would an investor invest there? Why do this if you can go to another country, to the same Czech Republic, for example, there, next to Hungary or Austria, and so on? Therefore, we feel that today, for example, in our industry, let's say, the volume of business is decreasing. Yes, the volume of business. That is investors do not develop, do not invest. The whole struggle in the world is for investors. All these states cannot do anything good, as they should not do. We need to get people who are ready to invest money and know how to do something. That's also important. It's not even that hard to find money. We need those who are ready to take risks and know how to accomplish something.
Here's an interesting situation. Well, first I met with colleagues from Israel. Their investments continue to flow despite the fact that there is a war. This is a very interesting phenomenon. Israel, which can wage war, but they are constantly at war. They are in an ongoing conflict. There are some brief pauses, but they are fighting, and it doesn't seem to limit their economic growth because Israel has developed very, very strongly. And here, I think we need to learn a lot than being better than others, despite the fact that we are quite close to the front line. Well, because if you look, well, we look far. There is Ukraine. If you look from Australia, then it is right here, very, very, very close, like 700, 800 kilometers. And there is the front line. And this is a search for an answer to why in Latvia, but why in Estonia? And why not? Not in Hungary, for example, or not in the Czech Republic, or not in Slovakia. I think it's a continuous process.
And perhaps in this case, what should be done? We need to adapt. Like, can you make an armored train?
Of course. I mean, what we produce today in the GovPills, that is our modernization. I don't know, like we produce a platform for transporting like nuclear fuel. We produce such a level of technology in locomotives. Today, we are undoubtedly the most advanced and competent engineering enterprise in the Baltics. That is for sure. That kind of technology level is nowhere else. Therefore, we can make practically any machine engineering thing there. Well, a tram is much, much simpler than a locomotive, than a diesel locomotive. Yes, that's not a problem at all. I'm not sure that an armored train can somehow be used in modern warfare. Somehow be used, and I am not a military expert, so I cannot comment, but it seems to me that the time has come for drones and not tanks.
We can also deviate in the past, just in past days, like drones and trucks and drones. It turns out drones can be transported on trucks. And overall, such an unexpected innovation.
No? Well, I would say that this operation, it is definitely comparable to those Israeli ones. When they handed out pagers that need to be pressed with both hands. It's just a fantastic operation.
And they sold it. Sold it. That's the most important thing. This is where we need our ingenuity and creativity so that investors come to us. I think there are all the possibilities here because there is continuous, competition between Latvia and Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, Estonia and Lithuania. And there are investors to somehow motivate oneself. How to help investors to invest here. I completely agree that investments are the most important thing for the country to develop. But do you also have some kind of business in Lithuania?
Oh yes, we have quite a lot of our wagons, locomotives operating in Lithuania. We have business with large Lithuanian companies. But I would say that if we talk about the Baltics, yes, we somehow feel in Estonia, well, the Latvians for us are somehow very close, understandable, practically relatives, which cannot be said about Lithuania. We really don't understand their mentality at all. I won't criticize them, but most of the failures we've had were specifically in Lithuania. That is, we simply do not understand these people. It must be admitted.
This is interesting. It's like my Estonian colleagues. In the 90s, it was very popular. They opened PR agencies in Riga. I was always surprised why they were opening these agencies here. It's just, and of course, they all closed these agencies after the money ran out. Then time passed. I got to know them, and they told me, so they later joked about themselves. Well, when we have extra money, we go to Riga, start a business, lose that money there, and then return to Estonia to earn again. But thank God with Lithuania, it's not like that. Ours lost more money in Ukraine than at home. always bigger ambitions, but you have a business in Lithuania. Now we see that in recent years, Lithuania has surged ahead in the entire Baltic region in both investments and economic growth. As someone who works in this market, can you explain what is the secret to Lithuania's success compared to Latvia and Estonia?
Well, I'm not such a know-it-all. I can't. I can't exactly explain this. You know, for me, Ukesh, is always a question of the perception of entrepreneurs, right? So today, let's take Georgia. For example, we work a lot in Georgia and so on. It's a very good example. In Georgia today, it feels like you just stick a pole in and money will grow. Yes, that is in Georgia. Factories are being built, a huge number of houses and so on and so forth. In Georgia, there is a 10% economic growth per year. So today there is a feeling that everything will be good and very good. Whether it will be so or not, it doesn't even matter. Money is being spent today. The economy is developing today. It's the feeling that everything will be fine. And when everyone has this feeling, the people who they are not buying apartments and then they start building apartments, yes, or televisions. They produce televisions for a business that knows it can sell because there is a feeling of euphoria that everything will be very good. And this feeling apparently is present in Lithuania, but apparently we don't have it. That's just my guess.
It's more of a feeling that there will be growth and more growth and more growth. Well, okay, it's like with social media. Well, okay, about Georgia. Well, Georgia, with Euro integration, it's like that. Well, like that. Let's put it this way. Politically, well, you can't say that they have protests after elections and all that turmoil. I don't follow Georgia in detail, but they seem like they, slowly, step by step, they are still turning into a satellite of Russia with all these...
This is a mistake. This is a narrative that today, let's say, not very talented politicians are trying to sell because it's very convenient to blame everything. So if they don't want to listen to what we want, then it's Russia. No, that's not true. Georgia is in no way heading towards Russia and does not want to be Russia. Half of them don't speak Russian in the government at all, have never been to Russia, and so on. This is not true. Yes, Georgia wants, not Georgia, let's say, but the ruling power today wants to implement authoritarianism in Georgia. Authoritarianism. Well, more or less, yes, that's also true. And that it doesn't quite align with our concept of democracy is also true. But also, on the other hand, let's look at 26 countries, of which even 2, we'll take Slovakia and Hungary, also do not quite agree with us, yes. And the rest of the world, there are 180 countries, do not agree with us at all. But we do not criticize elections, for example, in Azerbaijan, or elections in Uzbekistan. So why is everyone attacking Georgia? Why not attack...
Simply. In Georgia, it turns out that what you see on TV is what you see. But I completely understand that, and that's why I say I don't have an objective view of Georgia as such. I was in Georgia a long time ago, but when I was there, even then, the development was, so that's how it is.
In Georgia, there is a very, very strong civil society. A very strong civil society. In Georgia, people take to the streets for political freedoms. I am not sure that in Tallinn or Riga, if they pass some law, people will take to the streets, 100,000 people, and protest. I am not sure. We are used to sitting down in a studio to talk or discussing things in the kitchen, but there, society is very strong. It is real. It is polarized in some places, not in others. But they come out and speak about it. And that is why it all looks, let's say, like unusual behavior to us. But for them, it's normal behavior.
No, the usual was, if we look at Ukraine, there was also Maidan. But in Ukraine, these Maidans, they were there, did their part. That is, they very actively showed their civic opinion.
And in Ukraine, there is a strong civil society.
But here's the question. You say that in Georgia, they are planning to build authoritarianism. Will they succeed?
Well, I didn't say that. I said that they want to do this, but whether they will succeed, I can't say. No, well, certainly today those methods of dealing with the opposition or with the press, for me as well, a Democrat, I don't like them, honestly. I wouldn't do that in their place. On the other hand, it's their country, it's their people, and we cannot interfere in the internal affairs of a country. It's wrong when you say you should do this. Why? Why is that? It would be like if a prime minister, I don't know, of Georgia came and started to teach us here how we should pass laws. But we can't teach them. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs, for which I criticize him, directly writes, the Georgians should do this, this, and this. He went to a rally, he spoke at the rally. This is wrong. We should not interfere in the internal affairs of the country. This is democracy. People themselves chose such a government. It means they want such a government. The same story as with Trump, for example, right? We say, well, what is happening there? How could they choose him? People voted for him, elected him like that. It means people want such a person. Don't impose your own rules on someone else's house.
Here we need, to be fair, it's worth mentioning that America is a very established democracy. And well, Trump constantly raises the issue that the previous elections where he didn't win were rigged. He's silent about these ones. It was historically the biggest victory. So the problem with Georgia, this question, how much were the elections fair? I don't want to put forward, I don't want to develop this discussion at all. Were they fair? Were they not? The problem is that good news is that Latvia and Estonia are more established democracies. We still have 30 years of democratic experience. In Georgia, well, that experience is still unstable. That's why you always wonder, what if after all it's not like, how does the ruling elite present things? What should people do then? Take up arms and shoot the elite? Well, no, of course not. Well, of course, I agree with you. Interfering in others' affairs is also because I always dislike it when someone comes here and starts lecturing and pointing fingers. And
you know, Philip, I'm going to say something heretical. I think not everyone will like it. That is from those who, so to speak, think about Georgia. The problem in Georgia is that the opposition lost, the ruling coalition, the ruling party did not win, the opposition lost. I was there during those elections. Such disgraceful, senseless, and disorganized opposition cannot exist. They have their each party in the opposition was against its own party. Well, if they had united, there would have been a new picture. But they just lost this election. They did not engage in the election campaign. They did not travel to the regions. They did nothing. They just walked around in the press and on the street. On the streets only in Tbilisi, of course. Where else is convenient where you live nearby. So they were walking around and proving that the ruling party is wrong. But this is not how democracy is done. It is a huge job. Well, you know how to get voters' votes. They did not do that.
No one told them that when it comes to talking about Trump, he shook hands, he traveled and shook hands. And 10,000 handshakes is the minimum you need to qualify as a presidential candidate in Uzbekistan. No one told them that Trump probably doesn't know what he's doing. He's a bit foolish. He doesn't know how to run a campaign. But they are smart. They do it through social networks and only in Tbilisi.
You know, we built in Tbilisi, in the city center, we have a new district, large, and there's a golf club. He is among the top 100 golf courses in Europe, but many Latvians come to play golf with us. Yes, at our golf, yes, with communist groups, yes. It's called Vigrisi Hills. We have many visitors. And at our golf course, like any golf course, everyone comes, both the government and the opposition, everyone. And you can talk to everyone about everything on the golf club terrace, right? And, well, I see that they are not ready to work in the election campaign. They just have this thing where they thought everything would fall into their hands on its own. But life doesn't work that way. In life, nothing happens if you don't make an effort.
This is what torments democracy. It's the demotivation of politicians. Politicians must be motivated. They should be ready to, fight tooth and nail for whatever they can to win. That's what it means. Reaching out to people, going to the most remote village, drinking wine with them, I don't know, and making agreements. agreeing, persuading them.
Absolutely. Explain to them, show them, and so on. Yes, absolutely. That's what business does, because you always have to think about your people, how to pay salaries, how to ensure product sales, and everything else. Business does this 24/7 constantly. And for a politician, it's the same business. They have to work for, so to speak, the votes of the voters. Let them work.
Business. By the way, it's easier for politicians. You have to sell locomotives, and he only sells himself.
I'm not sure what is easier, because you see, not everyone manages to sell themselves.
Well, not everyone manages to sell locomotives.
Accepted.
Alex Sinavsky Rupnecht. He is Zaltelbuvecht. Thank you.
Thank you.